Well, again, let me express my appreciation for the fact that you have chosen to come and be with us this morning, and tell you how glad we are that you've come. We always look forward to our assembly. Sometimes we have to make a few adjustments as we go, but we always look forward to being together. Let me mention a couple of things before I begin the lesson this morning. Tomorrow night at our house, we'll have our monthly Bible class, and all are invited to that. We'd love to have you. We're going to be studying the book of Ecclesiastes this year in our monthly studies. So I hope that you will look forward to that. Certainly come if you can. And then Tuesday night, the college class will meet at Doug and Beth West home at 7. And of course, with over the next couple of days, some of us, all of us, I think probably anticipate some possible change in weather, even the change in weather that may prohibit us meeting, possibly. And if that does happen, we'll make sure we send out text messages and emails to let people know that those events have been canceled. But for now, certainly they are being planned and prepared for, and we hope that all who can be a part of those will do that. That's Monday night for everyone, and then Tuesday night for our college class and college population. So we hope that you'll make your plans for those things. I got a message this morning, text message from Caroline Barlow, and she told me that her sister-in-law, who was pregnant with twins, lost the babies. I don't know if that was this morning or last night, but certainly her brother and his wife are facing difficulty. Obviously, their hearts are heavy. They hurt. And she asked that we would mention that and that all of us would be praying for them. And I know you will. Those are things that several in this audience have faced, and those are difficult times. And I know that you would certainly be asking God to help them through these days that are ahead. So she wanted me to mention that, and I wanted to make sure that I did that this morning. I failed to get that to the elders earlier, so I wanted to go ahead and make that announcement to you as I began this morning. Our theme for this year is widen your hearts. As I said to you a couple of Sunday nights ago, I'm really excited about the theme. I think it's something that will challenge us. I think it's something that is needed. And each month our lessons will be designed to talk about ways that we need to grow, ways that we need to enlarge or extend ourselves in reference to our work and our worship. And that's the idea. In this particular month, the month of January, our topic is widen your hearts toward our Father, specifically toward our Heavenly Father. And with that in mind this morning, I want to present this lesson as we think about the reality of God. And I'm not just talking about the fact that He is, but I'm talking about the reality of who He is. And I want to talk to you in reference to reality juxtaposed to that which many people sometimes imagine. I want to talk to you about opening our hearts and widening our hearts to the reality of who He is. I think sometimes we close our mind, and when I say we, I'm talking about just people generally. They close their minds to really who God is. And I think sometimes even in our own lives, we may rationalize some things about God that are clearly taught in Scripture, and we rationalize those things because that's how we do it to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. So I want to talk to you about some things this morning that relate to that. And I want to begin by looking at this passage that Philip read for us as we began our worship here this morning from Psalm 100 that says this: "Serve the Lord with gladness, come before His presence with singing. Know that the Lord, He is God. It is He who has made us and not we ourselves. We are His people and the sheep of His pasture." I want to concentrate with you on this phrase. It is He who has made us, and not we ourselves. The reality of our origin, folks, is that God made us. Now, there are a lot of folks who just don't want to believe in God, so they resort to some sort of explanation. They have to have, like we have to have some explanation of our origin. It's not just simply enough to say, well, we're here, and I don't really care how that happened. To not care how it happened tells you that you don't care about your life. It makes it really, you're saying, I don't care about other questions that I have that relate to my origin. And I want to talk to you about that. My response to people this morning who say, well, I believe that evolution is the answer to origin. Here's my question. Do you really believe that the answer to origin, that everything in this world happened by chance, with its intricacies and with its complexity, your answer to all of that is that it just happened? That it is by pure chance? And while evolution is not specifically, it is He who has made us and not we ourselves, it comes pretty close. The idea of evolution is about as real to me, and I think just in terms of evidence, as saying we just made ourselves. Because there is a sense in which that evolution really says that. Does the fact that we exist the way we do seem to you to be by sheer chance? Does that really seem logical to you? Or does it seem more logical to you, as it does me, that we have been made by a designer, by an intelligent being who purposely made us? And I would suggest that this gets to the reality of God. I believe the evidence, and I believe it clearly, the evidence clearly points to the fact that God made us. Now, does that answer all my questions? No, it does not. It doesn't answer all my questions. I don't think all my questions are going to be answered now anyway. But I believe the evidence clearly points to the fact that we have been made by someone who designed us and had a purpose for us, and that God made us. Now, I want to suggest this. We all have the capacity to imagine things. We are filled with imagination sometimes, and sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. But I believe what happens to us when we imagine things about God, it confuses us. And we don't face this reality that we are talking about. I would suggest that it's more reasonable to believe in God. We weren't made by sheer chance. I believe the evidence for a designer and creator is overwhelming. I've been created for a purpose. I do not live some purposeless, random existence, but there are a lot of folks in our world who are doing just that. They choose to live without believing in God. And here's what I want to do this morning. I want to offer you 4 things that I believe people are thinking about. And when I say they're thinking about, I believe they have in their mind, they've reached these conclusions not because reality tells them these are the right things, but because this is what they want to believe. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. If you want to believe these things, you can, but it's not going to be the reality of what life is about. And so I want to share these things with you, and I want you to think about it. Okay? And if there is a chance in which some of these things are affecting you, then you need to become a person who looks at the reality of life and says, this is the way life is. So let me suggest these things to you, if I may, this morning. Some people say, I'm not going to believe in God because He is too demanding. He demands things of me. He's restrictive and He's constrictive. To believe in Him means He's in charge of me. Nobody likes for somebody to be in charge of you, do they? You don't like for somebody to tell you what to do. I don't particularly care for it myself. I like to be the one who is in charge of me. None of us like someone else who makes demands of us. Do you know something? I came into existence by a mother and father who ultimately made demands of me. I didn't have any choice in it. My mother and father are my mother and father. They made demands of me. But when I got old enough, I didn't go to my dad and say, hey, you know something, Dad? You and Mom are making demands of me, so I would much prefer that y'all don't need to, I don't want y'all to be my parents anymore. Does that make any sense to you? Because they gave birth to me, for me to say, I don't want them because you're too demanding. The the reality is that they are my parents. Now that's not hard for any of us to understand, is it? But the same is true about the existence of God. He may be demanding, but the reality is this. He's still your creator. He is the sovereign creator of heaven and earth. And if God wants to make demands of you, that is His prerogative. Not yours, not mine. That's His. And you may not want Him to be your God, but you don't have any choice in the matter. He is your God. He made you. And me saying that I don't like that or I won't listen does not in any way change the reality that He is your God. So that's not an excuse. Somebody can say that, but that's not an excuse. They can imagine that. I don't want to believe in God because He's too demanding. They can imagine it, but that's not who God says He is. Listen to this passage from Hebrews 12. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by Him. For whom the Lord loves, He chastens and scourges every son whom He receives. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten? But if you are without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Furthermore, we have had human fathers who corrected us. We paid them respect. Shall we not much more readily be in subjection to the Father of spirits and live? For they indeed for a few days chastened us as seemed best to them, but He for our profit, that we may be partakers of His holiness. Now, no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Do we not see what the Hebrew writer says God does for those He loves? You know, if you ask my kids, they would tell you that Beth and I were pretty demanding as a mother and father. I think there were times in our lives as we raised our children, and I think our children, all three, would tell you this, that we were restrictive. We told them, you're not going to do that. You may not understand it, but you are not going to do that. And yes, we were demanding about that. But we were that way. Why? Because we hated them? Well, did we tell them, no, we don't want you involved in that activity? We don't want you running with those people? We don't want you engaged in this? Did we do that because we hated them? Because we were on some power kick? Because we were the adults, they were the children, we can do it, you can't, you're supposed to pay attention to us? Was it just the fact that that's what we wanted to do? Absolutely not. And you know something? You know what's amazing? Now that our children are older, you know, each one of them has, in their own way and at different times, come to Beth and me and said, we appreciate the way. We appreciate what you did. We didn't see it then, but we see it. We understand. I'm not suggesting that we parented perfectly. I'm not saying that in any kind of way. But I'm saying that, yes, we did make demands because we always wanted what was best for them. The same is true of God. Is He demanding? Oh, yeah. He's demanding. But it's because He wants what's best for you. And don't we understand that? When are we at our very best? When we're doing exactly what God wants us to do. Isn't that right? And when we're not at our best, hopefully we don't feel well because we know we're not at our best. And we look at what God has demanded of us and we, in essence, do repent and say, I'm sorry for what I've done. I've not done it your way, I've done it my way, and I'm not the better for it. You may not want to demand of God, but that's what you have. That's what you have. And there's not one thing you can do. You can imagine it away if you want to. You can somehow disregard it. You can say, you know, I don't even believe that God made me. You can do that all you want to, but the fact of the matter is, the reality of God says, no, I made you, and yes, I have made demands for your own benefit. Some people would suggest this, that they say God is unfair. God's even mean. And this may affect us because sometimes people say, my life is filled with problems. Problems? You have any problems? Does it ever cross your mind, because you have problems and I have problems, for us to say, if God really cared about me, what? What? He'd fix them, right? He'd fix my problems. If God really cared about me, He would fix them all. As a matter of fact, I pray to God, and I've continued to pray to God about those problems, and guess what? They're not fixed yet. He doesn't care. Is that the way some people think? I know people who've lost faith because of problems in their lives. And I know people who've lost faith because of problems about which they've prayed, and God, in their minds, has not done one thing about it. So they've given up on God. They've somehow imagined God away. He's not real. He's not hearing me. He doesn't care. Yeah, folks, it's true. We've all got problems. It's true that we've all got problems that we've prayed about. It's true that we've got problems that we've prayed about that apparently, in our minds, God has not listened to and that He's not done anything about. All that's true. And it's also true that I don't always have good answers as to why He's not apparently hearing me. And you and I both know that's true. You and I both know that there are times in our lives when we ask ourselves, why, God, are you not hearing what I'm asking? Why are you not taking care of that? Why are you not helping me? But I'm going to tell you, this is something that crosses my mind quite frequently. I'm praying and you're not hearing. I'm not saying that because I'm shaking my fist, but I'm saying, God, I trust you. I still believe in you, but I don't understand. And you and I both know the answer to that question. The answer to that question is you don't quit on God. You don't quit having faith in God. You just keep praying. That's Luke 18, through and through. You don't stop. You keep praying. You keep working through that. That's not something new. As a matter of fact, the psalmist in Psalm 10, chapter 10, 1 says, why do you stand afar off, O Lord? Why do you hide in times of trouble? Now, let me tell you right now, every single one of us has said that to God. My guess is, maybe I shouldn't say, I can't read everybody's mind, but my guess is every one of us have said, why are you not here, God? Why are you not listening? Why are you not helping? Why are you standing afar off? Why are you hiding from me? It's as if you're not even here. I don't know what's going on. And the Psalms are filled with that kind of language. It's not just from David, although David spoke it a lot. You ever say to God, why aren't you doing something to help? And then follow that with, God, it's not fair that you're not doing something. Do you ever feel that way? Sure it is. Let me ask you another question. Do you ever feel like God is cruel? You say, well, I haven't felt that way in my own life, but there are other things that happen to other people, and it sure looks to me like He's cruel. Is that what you want to say about God? Ecclesiastes, the 7th chapter, verse 13 says, consider the work of God, for who can make straight what He has made crooked? Things are out of whack, folks. Things are out of whack in the world. They're not fair. Things are even chaotic. And from my perspective, just as one observer, from my perspective, it continues to go down that path. I want you to consider a man that we're all familiar with. He is a man who, according to what the Bible tells us about him, may help us with this question as much as anybody else. In Job 9, I want you to listen to what Job said. And before I read this, I'm just going to tell you, this is me. This has been me. How then can I answer him and choose my words to reason with him? Job's referring to God. For though I were righteous, I could not answer him. I would beg mercy of my judge. If I called and he answered me, I would not believe that he was listening to my voice. For he crushes me with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause. He will not allow me to catch my breath, but fills me with bitterness. Did you hear that language? He will not allow me to catch my breath. Listen to that. He fills me with bitterness. He has put so much on me. He has caused me so much pain, in essence, and problem that I can't even catch my breath. I can't even catch a break, in essence. Now, we all know that we feel this way sometimes. He goes on to say, if it is a matter of strength, indeed he is strong. And if of justice, who will appoint my day in court? Basically what Job is saying is, if I take it to court, who's the judge? He's the judge. In other words, I can't get away from it. It's these problems that they multiply. It multiplies my wounds without cause. Crushes me with a tempest. Tell me again, don't we feel that way? Sometimes he's crushing me. He's destroying me. He's hurting me. I can't catch my breath. Yet who am I going to turn to? Is there some judge out there that will hear my plea and say, okay, you're right, Kenny. He should be doing something. I'm going to force him to do something. I've got to go to him to find out if I can get a verdict in my favor. That's what Job says. Who am I going to go to? And Job's wife saw it, dealt with it, had to deal with it well. Finally, she said, what you need to do is you need to curse God and die. In other words, just forget the reality. Just curse him and die and be done with it. And Job said, I'm not going to do that. Job said, he may be unfair. And he may appear to be crushing me. But he's my creator. He's God. He's the only God that I have. Like it or not, he's my God. And if he's really unfair or mean, notice what is said in Job 38. This is toward the end of the book. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this who darkens counsel? By words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. But basically, what God said to Job is, you don't see like I see. You don't know what I know, and you don't understand like I understand. You see the language here in the latter part of this passage? Now prepare yourself like a man. You know what he's saying? Let's tie what he's saying there to what we've talked about thus far. When he says prepare yourself like a man, you know what he's saying? Don't be childish. What do children do? They imagine. They don't establish the reality and say, that's what I have to live by. Children imagine. God said to Job, you need to prepare like a man. You need to quit imagining who you think I ought to be, and you need to listen to who I am. I think that's exactly what he said. And what's interesting to me about this whole book is that God never answers Job's question. You ever thought about that? He doesn't ever get him answers. He never offers an explanation. He says you need to accept it and accept me and trust me. That's what he says. Okay, what's that remind you of, parents? You ever had that conversation with you just want to trust me? I know you don't understand it. I know you're frustrated with me. I know you think I'm just the worst parent in the history of parenting. I know you think I hate you. I know you think I don't like you. But what? You're just going to have to trust me. You know, I heard that from my dad till I got sick of it. And now I'm thankful to my dad for telling me. Because that parent perspective is different than a perspective of a 6 or a 10 or a 12 or sometimes an 18 or 20. Is God really unfair? You know how I answer that? There's one word I'll use to answer that. Is God unfair? Here's the word. Cross. 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 He's not unfair. He's God. The third thing that I would mention is that sometimes we say, and I think in an imaginary kind of way, that we think, I'm just going to hide things from God. You know, we don't verbalize that. I don't think any of us ever say, you know what, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm engaged in, and we don't verbalize, I'm going to hide it from God. You know why we don't verbalize it? Because we know it's not true. We imagine it. We live our lives because we hide things and we don't in essence come clean. But it's because we imagine that by not saying it, somehow God's not going to see it. God's not going to know about it. We're all pretty good about hiding things from people, aren't we? Probably, if push came to shove and we had to somehow acknowledge that. I'm not looking for a show of hands this morning, but do you have any skeletons in your closet? Do you have anything that's going on in your life or has gone on in your life that nobody in this audience knows about? Not one person. Maybe nobody else in the world knows about except you. Do you have anything like that? We're all pretty good about hiding. But we're not going to hide things from God. The Lord's in His holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold. His eyelids test the sons of men. Don't you love the language? His eyelids. You see how specific he is? His eyelids test the sons of men. He sees everything. Well, this passage that we're more familiar with in Hebrews 4, and there is no creature hidden from His sight, but all things are naked and open to the eyes of Him to whom we must give an account. May I give us a piece of advice? Don't imagine that God didn't know. Don't imagine that God doesn't know what you don't want anybody else to know. Don't imagine that God doesn't know what you don't want Him to know. God knows. You need to face the reality and know that He knows all. And finally, let me suggest this. Some who want to imagine a God that they want to fit to what they want, they'll say, I will prepare to face Him later. I don't want to serve Him now, but I will serve Him later. You know what? I think there are a lot of folks, this is my judgment, I think there are a lot of folks who understand what they need to do, but they're not doing it just simply because they don't want to. I think that happens a lot to younger people. I think it happens a lot to younger people who, in many cases, have been raised by godly parents, and they're just, for some reason, not all, not even most, and certainly not the young people that I'm talking to, most of whom are here this morning. I don't think that's you at all. But I think there are a lot of young people who say, you know what, I know that's what I ought to do, and I am going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get to that. But right now, I've got too many other things that I want to do that don't fall in line with what God wants or what my parents want or what somebody else who's interested in me spiritually wants. And so, they don't face that reality. They just put that aside. They just imagine, okay, for now I don't have to do it. This passage in Amos 4:12, where this preacher, prophet, farmer, Amos, tells Israel about what God will do. Therefore, thus I will do to you, O Israel. He's telling them what God's going to do. Because I will do this to you, prepare to meet your God, O Israel. You know, prepare to meet your God is not, you know what, God's going to come and see you. Just get ready. And when you see you, everything's going to be fine. It's not that kind of prepare to meet God. That's not what Amos is telling them God's saying. He's saying, you better prepare to meet God. And when that happens, justice will be served. Many people don't want to face this reality. They imagine a God who would never destroy, only save. I am. Interestingly, and I think coincidentally, I was looking at some material last night for a lesson that I will present in the future, and I'll allude to it now. A man named Rob Bell. That's a pretty common name in terms of just the religious circles. Fairly young guy, a little younger than me. That's how I package it. He's been an evangelical for years, but in recent years, he's pretty much turned into, you just love God, it's all about love, and God's, as a matter of fact, he was a proponent of there's not a hell, and various things like this, and he's really made a lot of evangelicals angry at him. But he's promoting the idea that God's not going to do anything. God is a God of love, and God's going to save you. The fact of the matter is, that's not what Amos said God is. We can imagine that that's it. You know what? I would be all for that. If God decided right now, listen, there is going to be a judgment, but it's really not going to matter what I decide because everybody's going to be okay. If that's what God wants to do, I'm all for it. I'll be the first one to vote in favor of that. But that's not what I read, and that's not what I think the Bible teaches us. I think what the Bible teaches us is we all need to prepare to meet God. We need to remember Matthew 10:28, do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Does that sound to you like that everybody's going to be in heaven? Is that what that sounds like to you? And that's not a great message. I don't enjoy stating that, preaching that. I don't enjoy that at all. I don't even enjoy thinking about it. I would much rather imagine that God is going to save everybody. And I will tell you, there's some times when I'm thinking, God is merciful, and I know He wants everybody saved. So, maybe, just maybe, and then I revert back to passages like this and say, no. He does want all of those things, but there are some things that must happen. People must have a heart that's willing to obey Him. That's clear from Scripture. How do you see your judgment seat? Do you imagine being able to negotiate with God? Can you imagine God looking at you saying, depart from me, and you say, hold on just a second. I've been thinking about this. I thought about this long before I came to this judgment scene with you, Lord, and I've been thinking about it. And I told myself that if you said, depart from me, that I was just going to say, wait just a minute, I got a few things I need. I don't think you fully understand my situation. Don't you think that's how some people imagine this? They're not living life like they should, and they know that, but they think somehow they're going to negotiate with God. They think that somehow they're going to be able to handle God's words differently on the day of judgment. They think somehow they're going to be able to minimize the outcome or change the outcome. Because that's not reality. That's not reality. My advice and God's instruction, I think, is prepare yourself like a man. Grow up. Face the reality. Don't imagine. Or as the way I put it today, widen your heart. Don't restrict God to what you think He is. You need to widen your heart to know who He is. He's told you. Don't limit your heart to understanding. You widen your heart and you fully understand who He is. Accept the reality that He is God. Accept the reality that He made you. Accept the reality that He makes demands of you. Accept the reality that He's not mean, He's not unfair, that He loves you, that He knows all, and He will render judgment because He is God. Your responsibility is to obey Him. This text that for some reason I didn't get on the screen. My son, give me your heart and let your eyes observe, is an idea that expresses the very thing that I'm talking about. You've got to give God your heart and fully understand who He is. He has not told us, folks, completely who He is. He hasn't. But that's because He's God and He's chosen not to do My personal judgment is, even if he wanted to do that, he couldn't, because we live in a realm that is temporal, and he would have to explain himself spiritually, in a fully spiritual way. We couldn't even understand if he told us. Not now. If God said, I want to reveal more about myself to you while you're on earth, I guess he could do that, but if he did, we wouldn't understand him. We have trouble understanding who he is now by even what he's told us. Because he's God, because he's eternal. And that makes it hard. But that doesn't take away the reality. So let's don't imagine. Let's don't imagine what we want to imagine. Let's believe what we know. That is reality. I think the way to conclude a lesson like this, at least for me, and hopefully for you, is to sing the song that I asked Brian to sing. It'll be pretty obvious. It'll be pretty obvious. And I want you, as we sing it, I want us to remember the words of Amos. You need to prepare to meet your God. If you need to do that today, may I strongly, as strongly as I know how, may I strongly encourage you to do that? Please do that. Make those needs known by coming forward as we stand.